think that nerves may have gotten the better part of us, seeing that we had to wait a little while to get on stream. So may I now introduce Pandit Atma Maharaj and his group, who will do the live happy birthday introduction for us. So Pandit Atma, it's all yours.
Around everyone. Actually, we were going to do the same song that was already played on the live stream. So we will probably just do one verse and conclude. Thank you very much. So we join together. Reminds us that every year birthdays come, and even though one may not be here in the physical world, but we still celebrate their birth, because the birth is not only a physical, but it represents one's life and legacy. So even though these days may roll by, the years roll by, we wish happy birthday. And to Savidya we say that even though he may not be here, his legacy and life continues to live on. Happy birthday and blessings to all of you. Happy birthday, Savitri. Blessings.
We want to thank Pandit Atma and his family group for bringing birthday greetings to Savidya Naipaul. And ladies and gentlemen, we actually do want to apologize for the late start, and I want you to believe that it was due to technical difficulties. So good evening once again, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the birthday celebrations of Savidya Naipaul, our own Nobel laureate, awarded the prize for literature in the year 2000. This evening's event is being organized by Friends of Mr. Biswas, an entity which is mandated to promote and sustain the works of this remarkable writer. And of course, NALIS, the National Library Information System, a long-standing partner which offers physical, technical, and corporate support to the ideas of Friends of Mr. Biswas. Today, V.S. Naipaul's birthday program continues the Naipaul and Me series, in which a latter generation of writers look back at and talk back to the older writer. The main focus on the program here, however, is on the comic side of Naipaul, presenting scenes without commentary or argument in order to expose our audience to the writing itself. This evening's presentation focuses on the early work of Naipaul that concentrates on a people, on a society that, as he said, was pure gold for the writer. If Naipaul forced us to look at and laugh at ourselves, then let us begin the journey of his arrival. It was by pure coincidence that I read the work of Sipasad Naipaul long after I had read most of his son's early work. Like many others, I was awed by the similarity of style, the satire, the irony, the dry and sometimes dark comedy that seemed to be the hallmarks of the son's work. To introduce his work, the Irie Theatre Productions Limited, which has been partnering with Friends of Mr. Biswas since 2013, will now present a video performance of an excerpt from The Adventures of Gurudeva, the novel written by Naipaul's father. This performance was taped in 2016 at a Diwali function organized by Irie Theatre Productions. The excerpt is entitled, "You Must Be Nuts." Let's begin the journey and let the writing talk for itself. Jason?
Things bad if you hear them cry. Not a sailor in tongue, the nightclubs dry. Only West Indians like me or you going to get a drink or two. But now I have them back in control. I seeking revenge with my heart and soul. Mama, as I spread the word around, if you see how them sailors come into town, just to meet Miss Gina and Dinah, Rosita and Clementina, by the corner posing, bet your life is something they're selling. But if you catch them broken, you could get them all for nothing. Don't make a row.
The Yankee gone, nobody take over now.
Good looks and dirty tricks.
Too much water don't pass under that bridge for anybody to bargain with she papi for she hand in matrimony.
Me so can't get married 2 times. But if nobody go see and tell on me, man, I taking she cane piece anytime, day or night.
If she agree to meet up in the bush with you, she will still scorn you for your rough hands and the coconut oil in your hair. I know that girl from wee days with schoolmaster Sohan. She never stopped looking for a way out. She turned Christian. After that, she chew plenty chewing gum. But all the time, she know it have some dreaming fool or ritual man somewhere waiting to get Bazodi for she.
And the man who get Bazodi for she is none other than Gurudeva, Panditji. Well, I just telling you as it is not for me to explain. Gurudeva was a bully and they threw him in jail. But jail opened the eyes. He get spiritual. As soon as he come out, he announced to his friend, family, and the whole village that from now on, I am going to tell the truth. It's Pandit that I am going to be. No more meat and drink for he. Nah, he stopped wearing trousers. He learned how to tie dhoti. He built a kuti in the yard and he get Pandit Shiv Lochan to train him. You might say, make the villagers bawl. He learned so much, so fast from the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, and the Sanskrit texts. But he given public lectures during the day and Hindi lesson in the kuti in the night. Then one day, Daisy appeared in front of him like a vision after a lecture. And she gone up to the smitten pundit and asked him if he could give she Hindi lessons too.
Now try and read that and write down the answer. The true answer.
You, You're too bad.
Don't say that. You come so late. I have to know if you change your mind. It's you who appear just so and ask to join this lessons class. It's you who wake up this wanting.
What you really want to teach me?
Some things you know more than me. But it's Hindi I want to teach you this. You learn so quick. Anything I teach you is as if you know it in a previous life.
You is a good teacher. And you is a man, Gurudeva.
And you is a good woman, this. You have me going crazy. I'm waiting for the answer to the question on the slate. Oh, God, this. Don't do me that.
You want to go to jail,
I in
Gurudeva?
hell. Who afraid jail?
A big pundit like you. And you don't know a man can't have two wives in this country?
You're laughing at me, Days. You shouldn't do that. It's love. I love you, Days. First time I'm feeling like this. You love me, Days.
And what about your wife? Watch how she watching me.
What are you doing there? Go inside for me. Go inside for me. And make up your mind. In we religion, a man without a son could have more than one wife. Just make up your mind for me. Daisy coming to live in we house just now. Go. She gone. To hell with she. She is not my legal wife. We married under bamboo.
I don't know if I could trust you, Panditji. You sure you didn't teach she Hindi too? Right here in the kuti?
Not the same way. I want to teach you this.
Look at you now. You're too bad.
Well, there's war in the kutia. Ratni pack up the cardboard grip and she gone back by she muma. Ratni say, well, it's either me or she. You see, she's not illegal wife. And she can't bring him up in the court. So she can't bring him up in the Angrezi courthouse. But she gets her father, Pandit Suklal, to call up a panchayat against Gurudeva for throwing she out and bringing in another wife. Pandit Suklal gone up before the panch and state the case and telling them how for years his daughter suffered licks and abuse at the hands of Gurudeva.
It is time we heard from Pandit Gurudeva. Is it true you have taken another woman?
It is true. And I want to see who can prove that I have done any wrong. I crave the indulgence of the punch to permit me to ask a few questions.
All right.
I suppose you all know what book is this I hold.
Copy of the Ramayana.
Good. You have guessed right.
Please don't be rude. Everyone knows it is a holy book in which Lord Ram speaks.
It tells the story of King Dashrath, does it not?
It does.
Was he a good man or a bad man?
Assuredly, King Dashrath was a good man, a lover of the Dharma, protector of his subjects, the father of Lord Ram.
Good. How many wives did King Dashrath have?
3 wives, of course.
All under one roof?
Yes, of course.
Why did he have so many wives?
Who is you to question King Dashrath?
The Lord had 3 queens in the hope that one or the other might bear him a son.
Shukriya. Thank you. So, you admit that a man is justified in having more than one wife?
He is justified.
He is justified.
He is justified. No. Don't sit down as if you win. You are not King Dashrath. King Dashrath kept his 3 wives under one roof. You frequent of prostitutes. He have put out Ratney out of his stupid little house.
Tis a face taking on a different complexion.
The shopkeeper who was a few quintal Daisy too. You can't believe anything that Chamar have to say. Ask. You must ask Ratney if I put she out. I did not put she out. I tell she if she leave, don't try to come back. But I never put she out.
Ratney! Ratney Suklal! Ratney Suklal! Ah.
Is it true, daughter, that Pandit Gurudeva did not put you out?
He didn't make me leave.
So, is you that make up your mind to pack up and leave him?
Yes, Nana. But when I did see that Yankee and crazy woman, she did make me feel to spit.
It is all unfortunate, but you are at fault, daughter. You had no right to leave your husband's care and protection. You have borne him no son. But whether you did or not, there's nothing in the sacred texts to forbid a man from having more than one wife. This is the view of the Panch. You may go. It is spoken.
Case for the crown, Gurudeva shout. And all he thinking about is how happy Daisy will be. Now, and she wouldn't hold back so much. Now that she have the status that every good woman wants, he can't wait. But he have to wait, you see, because Gurudeva is a more learned man and the biggest sage in the whole Panch. So it is only befitting that he pays respects. He takes the Ramayana and he puts it under his arm. He puts his palms together and he goes up and he bows to Pandit Shivlochan and then to every other member of the Panch. The shopkeeper want to stab him, but it is Pandit Suklal who proved that there's many a slip between cup and lip. Just when Gurudeva is walking off in triumph, well pleased with his show of piety, that Pandit Suklal stepped forth and called on the Panch to reopen the case, because according to the sacred text, a Hindu man must take a Hindu bride.
Wait. I agree by the Panch decision. But is it known to the Panch that the woman is of Christian faith and that she wears tight, short clothes and she wears high heels and short hair?
I have ignored the gossip, but now I ask, is it true that this woman eats cow's flesh and pig's flesh?
Yes. And wearing the tightest and greasy clothes. She hair like a boy. But she rouging those lovely cheeks and painting them tempting lips. Moving she waist when she walk, like if the high heel shoes is springs.
Shopkeeper, if I was you, I'll shut my mouth.
Pandit Gurudeva, what the Panch wants to know is if this woman is a Christian and if she eats and drinks and adorns herself in the way that we are hearing.
Not for long. I will turn this Christian into a Hindu. She will wear chappals instead of shoes. She will let her hair grow long once again. She will not paint her cheeks, nor go about bareheaded. She will wear an urni.
It is the wish of the Panch that the woman turn Hindu. If she refuses to comply, Pandit Gurudeva must disown her at once. If he does not disown her, if he does not put her out of his house, he may regard himself as being deemed an outcast. Kujat by the Panch. Pandit Gurudeva, you have heard. What say you?
It is good.
But It wasn't good at all.
You falling from above. Listen to me, darling, and don't fall in love.
Daisy looked satisfied enough when Gurudeva explained how, using the Socratic method and his knowledge of the sacred text, that he won the grudging acceptance of the defeated Panch. But it's when he explained that due to the cunning of that Pandit Suklal, it had an unexpected second round, that Daisy's eyes began to close and her face began to tighten while he kept talking as if all wasn't lost.
You falling from a plane, girl, you falling from above. Listen to me, darling, and don't fall in love.
But he arguing, he said, well, you know, maybe we could make a few concessions and show the Panch that God allowed it, and therefore no man couldn't stop them from living together as man and wife. But as he keep talking, like he realized he has sounding too convincing, and just so, he stopped talking. Daisy take a deep breath and jam she hand against she waist and flash a contemptuous look at Gurudeva and the absent Panch.
They must be nuts.
You falling from a plane, girl, you falling from above. Listen to me, darling, and don't fall in love.
Don't talk so, Days. If you don't do what they say, it's plenty trouble you gonna get me in. They gonna put me out of the patch, make me a kujat. Oh gosh, Days, you better think it over and save me from all this trouble. I give them a word that you go turn Hindu.
My heart still ache in sadness, my secret still untold. What it is to lose you, no one will ever know. My heart still ache in sadness, my secret still untold. What it is to lose you, no one will ever know.
You must be nuts too. You and the set of you. Me turn Hindu again? And don't make me laugh. Me with Gangri and Purni and chapels and long hair. Me with a rouge and lipstick.
When we were children, you did promise me that any time you fallen for me. When we were children, you did promise me that any time you fallen for me. Promise, girl, is something you should maintain. So come home to me, darling, to make love again.
You can all go to hell.
You fallen from a plane, boy. You fallen from above. Listen to me, darling, and don't fall in love. You fallen from a plane, boy. You fallen from above. Listen to me, darling, and don't fall in love. Flowers may wither and flowers would die. Your mother would forsake you, but never would I. Flowers may wither and flowers would die. Your mother would forsake you, but never would I. Your But since I know you, darling, I'm dying for you. You've fallen from a plane, girl, you've fallen from above. Listen to me, darling, and don't fall in love. You've fallen from a plane, girl, you've fallen from above. Listen to me, darling, and don't fall in love.
Victor, unmute your mic, please.
Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. Computer problems. Yes, you must be nuts for me to wear chapels, for me to wear long hair and orni and gangri and put sindoor in my hair. The statement by Daisy that says, I'm not going back there. As a woman, I will be independent and I will do the things that I am satisfied with doing. And that was Naipaul's father making those statements way back in the 1940s. So once again, let's thank the Irie Theatre Productions Limited for that production of You Must Be Nuts from the Adventures of Gurudeva by Siposide Naipaul. So we're moving right ahead to our second presentation, which I think it's a recorded presentation by Claire Adams. Claire Adams's first novel, Golden Child, was published in 2019 by Faber in the UK and SJP for Hogarth's in the US. It was awarded a number of literary prizes in both countries and was named a Book of the Year by the Evening Standard and the Times newspapers. It was also selected as one of the BBC's 100 novels that change our world. Claire studied sciences in the US at Brown University and then creative writing at Goldsmiths in London. She's currently working on her second novel, which has 1 foot in Trinidad and 1 foot in the wider world, spanning the world, I guess, as it were, as a phantom does. Here now is Claire Adams's recorded presentation of Naipaul and Me.
I'm Claire Adam, author of Golden Child. I live in London now, but I was born in Port of Spain and I lived in Trinidad until I was 18 and I went to St. Joseph's Convent, Port of Spain. My first encounter with V.S. Naipaul's work was Miguel Street, which we had to read in school. And I remember that expectations were set very high. The teacher said, girls, this is Naipaul. Naipaul is important, you must read him. And I read Miguel Street, and I have to say I came away really unimpressed, even disappointed. I was like, this is the big deal? And teachers were saying, but don't you see, he's writing about us. And I have to tell you, at the time, I didn't see why there was any value in writing about us. I was like, we are small fry, who cares about us? Now that might sound like a shocking, even shameful thing to say, but remember this was the 80s and 90s I'm talking about. And if you cast your mind back to the way Caribbean literature was published then, it felt like nobody ever expected the wider world to have any interest. These books were just for us little people on our little islands. It almost felt, dare I say, like an act of charity from the big people to the little people. So I was quite skeptical about Naipaul's status after reading Miguel Street. Privately, I felt like there might be something patronizing going on. Naipaul would probably diagnose that as my post-colonial self-loathing, but I didn't have those words then. I just felt what I felt. Things changed much later when I was living in England and beginning to write myself. And I was trying very hard not to write about Trinidad, because I still had this feeling that, if I wrote about Trinidad, it was going to be hard to be taken seriously. And it was only when I was physically in front of people and I saw with my own eyes how people were when they talked about Naipaul, and particularly about House for Mr. Biswas. You would see them, I would say Trinidad and they'd say, oh, Trinidad. And they would say Naipaul. And they would say, yes, House for Mr. Biswas. And you could see something form in their minds, and that something was the concept of Trinidad that Naipaul had given them. That may not sound like much now, but it was a real turning point for me. I just found it amazing, on 2 counts. Firstly, I was so used to assuming that we have to read about England and America, but that they couldn't possibly be expected to read about us. It was amazing to realize that it didn't have to be like that we didn't have to be subordinate, and that we could be equals. And secondly, that it was even possible to do. It was possible to write a book that completely and absolutely was true to Trinidad, but which also reached non-Trinidadians. And it was only then that I started writing about Trinidad. After many years of trying to avoid it, I finally said, okay, let me just try, let me see how it would go. And it was a really different experience. The words just bubbled up. And Naipaul said the same thing about writing Miguel Street, that the words just bubbled up. And that brings me on to the next thing I want to say, which is that I've had to be really careful with Naipaul, about reading Naipaul. His words are so confident and they resonate so loudly that they can very easily drown out my own words, I find. And in fact, there's some things that I've written myself, and later on I've gone to his work and seen something similar. And then in that case, I've been really glad I wrote my stuff before I turned to him, because otherwise I would have felt like I was copying. And one example is to do with the rhythm of life in the tropics, which is a daily rhythm, completely different to the rhythms of a colder climate, which revolves more around the 4 seasons. So the reading that I'm going to do is from my novel Golden Child, and I picked it just to sort of illustrate a little bit the, sort of trying to avoid Naipaul's influence. I wrote this before I read House for Mr. Biswas, so I wrote several drafts of it, and then I just peeked into House for Mr. Biswas, and then I quickly put it away because I didn't want to read anymore. But I think probably in some places you can still see the influence, even just from a couple of pages of reading. So they're here having a family get-together on a Sunday. So how's work going, Philip asks. What it is you're doing at the moment? Same thing, man, Clyde says, trying to sound casual. Construction. Construction? You mean the concrete? You mixing concrete still? Nothing wrong with that, Mousy says. Everybody need a house to live in. If you know how to mix concrete, you will always find work. Yeah, but now you have mouths to feed, Philip says. That kind of work is not reliable. But he's hardworking and he's determined, Marilyn says. She's sitting with one leg crossed over the other, so her foot sticks out a bit in front, showing off her perfect white toes and nail polish. He has the right attitude. That's half the battle. Why you don't try and get a job in oil and gas, Philip says. I bet you most people around here work in petrochemicals now, not so? He talks about the changes he has noticed around Trinidad recently, how more people now have satellite dishes on their roofs, how everybody nowadays has burglar-proofing bars over their windows and doors, how he has heard via his contacts on the grapevine how many expats are coming into Trinidad these days, and how in Point Lisas by the industrial estate they're going to build a compound with a swimming pool for all the foreigners to live in. Philip says, turning to him again, I bet if you go and ask, they would have something for you to do. You wouldn't be able to get the really high-paying jobs because, but you could at least get a foot in the door. You need a university education for those high-up jobs, Rachel says. Physics, chemistry, engineering, that kind of thing. Education, Mousy says, nodding. But Philip is right, Marilyn says. It's the foot in the door. That's what you need. And once you're in, you can work your way up. You see, if he had the education, Mousy says, then he could get the high-up jobs. She starts talking about her brother, Uncle Vishnu, how he got a scholarship to St. Saviour's Secondary School in Port of Spain, and then won an island scholarship to England to study medicine. Clyde takes a handful of peanuts and sits, one foot cocked over the other knee, looking out towards the front yard. He has heard this story many times before, how it all goes back to Mousy's father, Surendranath, and the sacrifices that he made. Out on the trace, children of various sizes are running back and forth, hollering, waving sticks and leaves at each other. Peter and Paul and Saeed are watching them from the front gate. And as you see, my son Philip, Mousy says, gesturing to Philip, took the same path, and now he is a judge, always in the papers. On the patio, while Mousy talks, Romesh drinks his beer, swings his knees in and out. Romesh didn't do well at school at all. He went to a government secondary somewhere in Marbella or somewhere, one of those places where the teachers are always on strike and the girl's pregnant by 15. Whenever Mousy gets going in this vein, which is often, Romesh refuses to make any response, just acts like it's water off a duck's back. Clyde refuses to make any response either, even though he knows Mousy wants him to be impressed. But what is there to be impressed by? They have two kinds of men in the world, Clyde thinks, two kinds of fathers. One kind works hard and brings all the money home and gives it to his wife to spend on the house and children. The other kind doesn't do that. And nobody can control what kind of father they get. Simple as that. By 5 o'clock, the thing is going the same way as usual. When you have men like Romesh and Philip drinking alcohol from morning till evening, this is how it always ends up, with one set arguing, always about the same old things. A lot of it comes from Romesh, who is the most drunk of all. It starts when he asks Philip for money to help with some debt he's run up, and then things spiral downhill in the usual way, with Philip saying self-righteously, "Never a borrower nor a lender be," and Romesh telling Philip to stop being so high and mighty and acting like he's better than everyone else, and how he should share what he has with them because they are family. Uncle Vishnu, arrived back from the races and sitting with his plate of food balanced on his knees, says how he has already lent Romesh money once and he's not going to do it again without good reason, and he says nothing else on this subject at all. Then Mousy says that she will lend him what money she can, but she argues with Romesh about how he doesn't do enough to help, how he only comes when it suits him, how all he does is eat and leave and bring the child Saeed here for her to mind and feed, how Romesh should do something in return, how he should help out. "Take, take, take," she says. "That is how you are." And Romesh says, "See, I'd rather get the money from Republic Bank and pay it back with 15% interest, rather than have to listen to you complaining about all the things that I do." I'll stop there. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Claire Adams's a reading from her novel, The Golden Child. And I think that she by now must be quite aware. You could leave Trinidad, you could leave these islands, but these islands will never leave you. As Naipaul said, this island is pure gold for the writer. You just have to look hard enough and you'd find the treasure somewhere in the substrata if you dig deep enough. My good friend, David Sami. David Sami has been a member of the San Fernando Theatre Workshop since 1980. He has worked with James Lewa, Tony Hall, and Victor Edwards, and acted with Devendra Dukhi and Errol Sitahal, two of the best known actors in Trinidad and Tobago. He has done radio and film. He acted in the film version of Ian MacDonald's The Hummingbird Tree. David will now present The Engagement, an excerpt from A House for Mr. Biswas. David?
Hi. You all hearing me? Okay. Just making sure that you all are, everyone is hearing me. Okay. Biswas was a sign painter on a job at Tulsi's store. When Biswas went to Hanuman house the next day, he had a note that he intended to give to Shama, but she was busy all morning. But just before noon, when the store was about to close for lunch, there was a little lull and her counter was free. So Biswas came down the ladder and walked about the store, past Shama's counter, and without looking at her, took the note and slipped it under a bolt of cloth. She saw him and smiled. He felt foolish and he wanted to take it back. But just then, a customer came into the store and there was a ruckus and the bolt of cloth was shifted and Mrs. Tulsi, Shama's mother, found the note. Just before 4, when the store closed and Mr. Biswas stopped work, Seth came in, looking as though he had spent the day in the fields. He wore muddy bluchers and a stained khaki topi. In the pocket of his sweated khaki shirt, he carried a black notebook and an ivory cigarette holder. He went to Mr. Biswas and said, in a tone of gruff authority, "The old lady want to see you before you go." Mr. Biswas resented the tone and was disturbed that Seth had spoken to him in English. Saying nothing, he came down the ladder and washed out his brushes, doing his soundless whistling while Seth stood over him. The front doors were bolted and barred, and the Tulsi store became dark and warm and protected. They climbed a short flight of cracked concrete steps into the hall of the wooden house. It was deserted. Seth left Mr. Biswas saying he had to go and wash. He heard a creak on the staircase and saw a long white skirt and a long white petticoat dancing above silver braceleted ankles. It was Mrs. Tulsi. She moved slowly. He knew from her face that she had spent the afternoon in bed. Without acknowledging his presence, she sat on the bench and, as if already tired, rested her jeweled arms on the table. He saw that in one smooth ringed hand, she was holding the note. You wrote this? He did his best to look puzzled. He stared hard at the note and stretched a hand to take it. Mrs. Tulsi pulled the note away and held it up. That? I didn't write that. Why I would want to write that? Well, I only thought so because somebody saw you put it down. Seth came back to the hall, his bluchers resounding on the floor. He had washed and was without his topi, his damp hair streaked with grey, was combed flat. He sat down across the table from Mrs. Tulsi and fitted a cigarette into his cigarette holder. What? Mr. Biswas said. Somebody saw me put that down? Seth laughed. Hey, nothing to be ashamed about. He clenched his lips over the cigarette holder and opened the corners of his mouth to laugh. Mr. Biswas was puzzled. It would have been more understandable if they had taken his word and asked him never come to their house again. I believe I know your family, Seth said. Mrs. Tulsi, scooping up some beans with a shovel of roti, said to Seth, better feed him. You want to eat? Seth spoke as though it would have been amusing if Mr. Biswas did want to eat. Mr. Biswas disliked what he saw and shook his head. Pull up that chair and sit here, Mrs. Tulsi said, and barely raising her voice, called, "See, bring a cup of tea for this person." I know your family, Seth said. What's your father's name again? Mr. Biswas evaded the question. I am the nephew of Ajoda Pagote. Oh, of course. Expertly, Seth ejected the cigarette from the holder to the floor and ground it with his bluchers, hissing smoke down from his nostrils and up from his mouth. I know Ajoda. Solim Samlan, Dankuzlan, he said, turning to Mrs. Tulsi. Oh, yes. Mrs. Tulsi continued to eat, lifting her armored hand high above her plate. She turned out to be the woman who had served Mrs. Tulsi. She resembled Shama, but was short and sturdier, and her features were less fine. Her veil was pulled decorously over her forehead. But when she brought Mr. Biswas his cup of tea, she gave him a frank, unimpressed stare. He attempted to glare back, but was too slow. He had already turned, and she was walking away briskly on light bare feet. He put the tall cup to his mouth and his lips and took a slow, noisy draught, studying his reflection in the tea and wondering about Seth's position in this family. So, you really do like the child? He felt it would be graceless to say no. Yes, he said, I like the child. Mrs. Tulsi chewed and said nothing. Seth said, hey, I know a Joda. You want me to go and see him? Incomprehension, surprise, then panic overwhelmed Mr. Biswas. The child? He said desperately. What about the child? What about her? Said Seth. She's a good child. A little bit reading and writing even. A little bit of reading and writing, Mr. Biswas echoed, trying to gain time. Seth, chewing, his right hand working dexterously with roti and beans, made a dismissing gesture with his left hand. Just a little bit. So much. Nothing to worry about. In 2 or 3 years, she might even forget. And he gave a little laugh. He wore false teeth, which clacked every time he chewed. The child, Mr. Biswas said. Mrs. Tulsi stared at him. I mean, said Mr. Biswas, the child knows? Nothing at all, said Seth appeasingly. I mean, said Mr. Biswas, does the child like me? Mrs. Tulsi looked as though she couldn't understand. Chewing with lingering, squelchy sounds, she raised Mr. Biswas's notes with her free hand and said, What's the matter? You don't like the child? Yes, Mr. Biswas said helplessly. I like the child. Hey, well, that is the main thing, said. We don't want to force you to do anything, you know. We forcing you? Mr. Biswas remained silent. Seth gave another disparaging little laugh and poured tea into his mouth, holding the cup away from his lips, chewing and clacking between paws. Hey, boy, we forcing you? No, Mr. Biswas said, you're not forcing me. Well, all right then. What upsetting you? Mrs. Tulsi smiled at Mr. Biswas. The poor boy is shy, I know. I am not shy and I'm not upset, Mr. Biswas said. Faces of children and women peeked out from the kitchen doorway. The world was too small, the Tulsi family too large. He felt trapped. The most absurd feature of that evening was to come. When he had left Hanuman house and was cycling back to Pagotes, he actually felt elated. But now the elation he felt was not that of relief. He felt he had been involved in large events. He felt that he had achieved status. And when that evening, Alec asked in his friendly, mocking way, howdy, girl, man? Well, I see the mother, said Mr. Biswas. Alec was stupefied. The mother? But what the hell you gone and put yourself in? All Mr. Biswas' dread returned, but he said, it's all right. I got my eyes open. Good family, money, acres and acres of land. I am not going to be a sign painter for the rest of my life. No more sign painting for me. Alec didn't look reassured. How you managed to do this thing so quick? Well, I see this girl, I see this girl and she was looking at me and I was looking at she. So I gave her a little bit of the old sweet talk and realized that she liked it too. And well, to cut a long story short, I asked to see the mother.
Thank you very much, David. I'm sure that all of us, including elders like Ken and Professor Samaru, would have had the experience of writing notes to the ladies, young ladies, their school uniforms and so on. And even if they did not have that experience, I'm certain that they may have had the experience of having to write official letters with the hands of their wives. Courage, because that was a traditional thing that existed many, many years ago. But Brian and I, we were talking off camera early on, and we were talking about singing. So I'm just going to break protocol a little bit and tell Brian that the girl who sang in the excerpt that we presented at first, that's my daughter. And I want to let you know that there's hope for you if ever you come to Irie Theatre to teach you to sing. Ladies and gentlemen, Brian Macgyver. Brian Macgyver is a Trinidadian author who studied English at the universities of Cambridge and Edinburgh. She has been shortlisted for the Commonwealth Short Story Prize, the Glimmer Train Fiction Open, the Fish One Page Prize, and the Derek Walcott Writing Prize. In 2015, she won the Caribbean Writers David Hoff Literary Prize. Her first book, Where There Are Monsters, was published in 2019. Ladies and gentlemen, Brianna Macgyver presenting live Love, Love, Love Alone. Brianna.
Hello, everybody. Good evening, and thank you so much for having me. I am a terrible singer, but I will hold on to that promise. I first read a Naipaul book in its entirety when I was doing my undergraduate degree at Cambridge. Reading Miguel Street made me miss home, it made me laugh, and it captured a certain essential Trinidadianness. There were the ubiquitous nicknames, the uncle who always knows how to fix your car, and the protagonist was a young person who was going to England for a better life, like I was doing. I gave Miguel Street to everyone, telling them, read this book if you want to know about my country. Doesn't matter that Miguel Street was published some 50 years before. And I decided to do one of my 2 undergraduate dissertations on Naipaul. To my surprise, friends who read Miguel Street asked me if I was bothered by the treatment of women. In particular, we spoke about Love, Love, Love Alone, a short story where a man beats a woman so often and so violently that he's castigated by the community. In the book, Hat said, it's a good thing for a man to beat his woman every now and then, but this man does do it like exercise. Thankfully, the woman in the story eventually escapes the middle-class respectability. I defended Miguel Street. I explained that this was a common attitude in Trinidad at the time, and the novel was simply representing that moment. As a Trinidadian, I assured my English friends that those types of attitudes didn't exist now, and I used myself as an example. I was 20 years old, and aside from men suiting me in the street, I never experienced that type of casual misogyny portrayed in the book. Writing my dissertation, of course, I read more Naipaul. I did read about more wife beatings and even the extreme abuse of women in guerrillas. And I read Naipaul's biography, where he talked about hitting his wife until his hand hurt. As part of my research, I also read an academic paper where the author referenced Sparrow's Jean and Dinah to question why the elevation of the Caribbean man came at the expense of the Caribbean woman. Because the only way for Sparrow and the boys to rule Port of Spain was to beat down the prices of the prostitutes. My attitude to the representation of women in Naipur was changing, but none of that made it into my dissertation. I handed in my paper and I came back to Trinidad for a couple of months to work before going on to do my master's. The job I had fell through, and my father arranged for me to work at the gym. It was the first and the only time in my life I had a behind-the-counter service job. On my first day, the men coming to the gym asked me if I was the owner's daughter, and I said no. I didn't see the need to say that my father knew the owner. There, at 21, I got my first taste of the casual misogyny that I had vigorously denied only a few months before. For example, men regularly made graphic comments about my body and sex acts that they would like to perform. Men explained the most basic concepts to me in great detail. When one man was explaining the concept of metaphor in the Transformers movies, I snapped. I said, yes, I know about metaphors. I have a degree from Cambridge and I'm going to do my master's at Edinburgh. His accusatory response was, but you said you weren't the owner's daughter. After my reasons for working at this job were cleared up, all of the men's behavior stopped. Some of the men invited me on dates to expensive restaurants. One asked my opinion on Derek Walcott's Omeros. I was safe in middle-class respectability. But I realized that the casual misogyny that I had dismissed so blithely was alive and kicking in Trinidad. And just as Miguel Street holds a mirror up to our society in all the ways I love, it also reflects our attitude to women still. My own writing has always been concerned with issues of gender and social class. And as a Trinidadian writer, it's impossible to write outside of Naipauli's shadow. And my personal experience with my dissertation makes it even more impossible. My short story collection, Where There Are Monsters, examines the big and the small ways that people are monstrous, including the ways that men are monstrous to women. Sometimes my female characters are victims, as in love alone, because love is still tied up with violence in certain parts of this country. But I also write about modern women who have the agency to be more than victims of a twisted type of love. And there is one of those women in my short story, The One Night Stand. And I'm just going to read a little bit of that from the beginning now. The One Night Stand. He wakes up alone. The Saturday sounds seep through his blackout curtains. His neighbor is training her dog. Down, boy, she shouts. The woman walks into the room wrapped in a towel. The gray handle of his toothbrush is wedged between her teeth and specks of white foam dot her lips. You're using my toothbrush? He says. I couldn't find another one, she says. It's going straight in the bin when she leaves. A one-night stand. Yes, God. Jackhammer sex? That's one thing. But to use someone else's toothbrush is an invasion of their privacy. She walks back to the bathroom and he hears her spit. He fishes on the floor until he finds last night's boxers. What do you want for breakfast? She calls from the bathroom, as if they are long-time lovers. There may be some eggs, he says, doubting their existence. I'll make do. Can I borrow one of your t-shirts? Take one of the gym shirts. They're in the second cupboard in the walk-in closet, third row. He hears her shuffling about. Then she says, I like my women like I like my coffee, ground up and in the freezer. It's his white shirt, emblazoned with blood red writing. Do you like your women like you like your coffee? I don't think it's possible to choke coffee until it stops screaming, he says. She laughs. Oh, you're one of those. She comes in raises her arms and twirls so that the t-shirt rises over her hips. Halfway through the spin, she looks down at herself, as if her spottily shaved genitals are the most hypnotizing thing in the world. He doesn't respond. "Okay, Mr. Sleepy," she says. She kisses him on the cheek, a rookie press of her lips before walking downstairs. In his bathroom, he sees that she's flecked his mirror with white globs of toothpaste and saliva, like a child who hasn't learned to brush her teeth carefully and spit in the sink. This is why he doesn't usually bring women to his apartment. Or one of the reasons. The maid won't be here until Tuesday. He spritzes the mirror with cleaning solution, then wipes it with a chamois cloth. He doesn't like her in his kitchen alone. He goes downstairs. "Your fridge is sorely lacking in eggs," she chirps. "I don't usually cook breakfast." "Well, I hope you enjoy bacon, slightly burnt toast, and leftover potato au gratin." "I don't imagine I will, but we'll see." Against the backdrop of his quartz and chrome kitchen, every color on her skin is magnified. Purple half moons of eyeliner smudged onto her face, a blue scar bleeding across her wrist. Her bare brown legs, her funhouse fattened thighs are reflected in his refrigerator and the shiny side of his oven. When he was at university abroad, he occasionally had women stay the night. The mornings after had never been memories to relish. Often, they'd both been so hungover that between them, there was only a smudged recollection of what had occurred. Her high-pitched howls and piddling imitations of internet porn. Choking if she was up for it, or sometimes if she wasn't. He'd given that up when he moved back home. Hotels were better. Even the backseat of his car, although he loves his black Jaguar with a passion he rarely feels for people and worries about soiling it. Still, a car has the advantage of ensuring that the woman is gone by morning. She pulls the potatoes out of the microwave and tests them by holding her palms over the plate. Like a waitress, she brings a hodgepodge of food over to the breakfast nook. She's even dredged 2 cartons of orange juice from a near-empty carton. He thinks unhappily of her bare ass on his pure white cushions. "Do you have plans for the rest of the day?" she asks. He spreads some potato on toast and takes a bite. Woeful. "I have some work to do." "Oh, what do you do?" "Business development executive." "Hence the house." She spreads her arms wide, as if she can touch the Austin gray cashmere curtains in the living room, the African blackwood table, the orange roses and white cymbidium orchids arranged to spill out of opposite sides of a glass vase. He nods. If he stays quiet, he's practically inviting her to ask him more. "What do you do?" She lays her knife and fork down as if she needs both hands to answer. "I work at the TTRCC, the Trinidad and Tobago Rape Crisis Center. It's too ridiculous." "We're an NGO that, yes, I know." He can't resist. "Don't they teach their staff techniques to avoid assault? Like not letting strange men buy them drinks?" She blushes. "And you're still here?" "I could be anybody." So I'll stop there, but as the story goes on, he realizes that there's a little bit more to her than the dumb girl that he thought when they first met.
Thank you very much, Marianne. Very graphic, very clear, very Trinidadian in the reading as well. And I'm certain what you presented, was a sort of spectrum of love. And I'm sure if Roma had the mic and had to sing, she would sing, "Black up the eye, bruise up the knee, then they'd love you eternally. Love you long and they love you strong. That's the calypso in story, the Naipaul story. But the other end of the spectrum, and the name of your story, Lord Caressa sings, is love, love, love alone that caused King Edward to leave his throne. So you see what love could do? Could cause a man to leave a throne, could cause a man to beat a woman to prove his love. But Roma Spencer is an actress, playwright, director, and comedian. Playing the role of Dinah in Jean and Dinah brought her to national consciousness. And her Rhapsody hit of 1998, Ring Bidding, propelled the fame even further. Now settled in Toronto, or should I say Toronto, she continues to blaze the trail there in theater, film, television, and the culinary arts. See her in the Canadian movie Scarborough, premiering at the upcoming Toronto International Film Festival in September. Talk Does Bring Talk as a Trinidadian thing. A presentation by the effervescent Roma Spencer.
Thank you very much, Victor. And I would like to bring greetings from here in Toronto to all my friends and colleagues who are on this Zoom link, my brother, Michael Sherry, my co-thespian. And I'd like to thank Dr. Kenram Chan for inviting me to read for this occasion. Thank you very much. He recognized the chicken at once. It was one of Mrs. Chittaranjan's clean-necked chickens, white and gray, an insistent, impertinent thing that, despite repeated shootings and occasional lucky hits with stones and bits of wood and empty Canadian healing oil bottles, continued to come into his yard, eat his grass, dig up his languishing plants, and leave its droppings everywhere. For a moment, Ram Logan was sad to see it lying dead at his feet. He looked up at Chittaranjan's veranda. Chittaranjan was waiting for him. Look at it, good Ram Logan. It's not going to worry you again. Look at it good. Take it up, cook it, eat it. Now is your chance. You kill it, you wicked beast, you Nazi spy. Who you calling a Nazi spy? You Nazi spy. You is worse than Hitler. And because I is worse than Hitler, you come and put this dead fowl on my doorstep. But ain't it make your heart satisfied to see the poor little chicken dead? Who tell you I kill your fowl? I ain't kill nobody fowl. You is a worthless liar. Ram Logan lifted his leg to kick the chicken from his doorstep. Kick it, Chittaranjan said. And I bet your whole fat foot drop off and rotten. Go ahead and kick it. Ram Logan was getting angry. You just want to put something on me, eh? You is a big fighter, and all you could do is put magic and obi on me. Ram Logan strode over the dead chicken and walked slowly to the edge of his yard. He said genially, Chittaranjan, come down a little bit. Come down and tell me I is a Nazi spy. And Ram Logan put his hand on the wire fence. Take your fat, dirty hand off of my fence. Ram Logan smiled. Come down and take my hand off. Come down, take my hand off of your fence and tell me I is a Nazi spy. Come down, Ram Logan invited. I not going to dirty my hands on you. Chittaranjan paused. But is my fence still? Inspiration came to Ram Logan. Why you don't put a fence around your daughter too? Nalini? Chittaranjan asked, and his tone was almost conversational. Yes, Nalini said, little Nalini. Ha! Ram Logan, what you want with my daughter? Ram Logan shook the wire fence. I don't want nothing with your daughter. But I know who want though. Ram Logan, who is you to take my daughter name in your mouth in vain? You, a man like you, who should be running about kissing the ground in case she walk on it? Walk? Ha! Little Nelly tired with walking, man. She lying down now. Ram Logan, you mean you sell everything from that rum shop of yours? You ain't even keep a penny shame? Making up a story about a little child? Ram Logan said, when girl children little, they just crawl. Then they start walking. Then they just lie down. That ain't no saying I sit down and invent. Who invented? Chittaranjan screamed, your mother? Ram Logan said solemnly, Chittaranjan, I beg you, don't cuss me, mother. Cuss me upside down as much as you want, but leave my mother alone. But if you want to learn about Nelly, why you don't ask Form? Form? Foreman? Basson? Campaign manager? Nice boy. Nice Muslim boy. Chittaranjan lost his taste for battle. It's true. It's true, Ram Logan. You ain't making this up. Why are you asking me for? Ask Nelly. Look, little Nelly coming back up from school. Ask she. From his veranda, Chittaranjan saw Nelly coming up the road. Proper student and scholar, man, Ram Logan said. The girl going to school in the daytime and taking private lessons in the nighttime. I know I is a Nazi spy. And I know I is a shameless, hardback, resigned man. But I is not a man to make up things to turn father against daughter. He gave the fence a final shake, went and picked up the chicken and flung it into Chittaranjan's yard. It get fat enough eating my food, he said. Cook it and eat it yourself. She overdid the cheerfulness when she saw Chittaranjan. Hi, Pops. Chittaranjan didn't like the greeting. Nalini, he said sadly. Don't bother to go wrong by the back. Come up here. I have something to ask you. End of reading. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Roma. And I have often said to Professor Ken Ramchan that The Suffrage of Elvira is one of my favorite books by Naipaul, because I think he so perfectly represents the kind of people we are in The Suffrage of Elvira. Even now when I read it again, I can't help but, I can't contain myself from the laughter that book contains. So thank you once again, Roma. And from one professor, we go to another. Brinsley Samaru is Professor Emeritus, UE, a former Minister of Agriculture and a widely appreciated scholarly source on culture and society of Trinidad. He's a distinguished old boy of Naparima College, where he took part in numerous theatrical productions. A very short bio for a man of such stature. But Brinsley Samaru is writing for spite. So Professor, write.
Right, thank you. Are you hearing me? Yeah, right. Well, I want to call this reading that I'm going to do from the book, The Mystic Marcia, Ganesh's Dilemma. Ganesh's wife, Leela, has just committed suicide because of the strenuous of the marriage. So Ganesh is very sad about it, but on the other hand, sees it as a form of escape from the tyranny of Leela and her family, who had constantly concentrated on money, money, and money, thus frustrating his ambition to become a writer, to write his first book. So he felt that he was being constantly blocked by them, and now he's in a dilemma. His wife has committed suicide, but he sees on the horizon the possibility of his becoming a writer. So at the end of the reading, he has freed himself enough to write that first book, which is the title of chapter 6 of the book, The Mystic Marcia, called the first book. I would like to add just one more sentence, that in the section where we talk about women's education and the neglect of women's education and what the governor said about women's education comes very directly from the writing of Sipasad Naipaul. So V.S. Naipaul, the son, takes up, a long crusade that his father had taken, that is in respect of empowering women through education. And that is reflected in a paragraph that I'm going to read. So he didn't feel it at first. Then he got up on a sudden and kicked the brass jar over, spilling the water all over the floor. He watched the jar circling until it stopped on its side. Let she go. Let she go, he said aloud. He spent some time walking up and down, going to Shoshi. Not going to write at all. Not going to write a single line. He gave the jar another kick and was surprised to see a little more water spill. Let she feel sorry and shame. Let she go, saying she come in here to live with me, and then she can't even have a little thing like a baby, a small, tiny little thing like a baby. Let she shame. Let she go. He went in the drawing room and began pacing there. Among his books, he stopped and gazed at the wall. Instantly, he began working out whether he could really have fitted in 77 feet of bookshelves of it. But Leela is on his mind, just like she father. No respect for books, only money, money, money. He went back to the kitchen, picked up the jar, and mopped up the floor. Then he bathed, singing devotional songs with a certain fierceness. From time to time, he stopped singing and cursed, and sometimes he shouted, "Going to Shoshi, not going to write a single line." He dressed in and went to see Bihari. "Governor said the truth, man," Bihari said, when he had heard. "The trouble with we Indians is that we educate the boys and leave the girls to fend for themselves. So now it have you becoming more educated than Leela, and me more
Hi, Mr. Samaru. You just went on mute there. If you could just unmute yourself.
Okay. Okay?
Yeah, here and now. Yeah.
Right. Suraj Moma made a sudden eruption into the shop And as soon as she saw Ganesh, she began crying, hiding her face in her veil. She tried to embrace him across the counter, failed, and still crying, ducked under the counter and passed over to where Ganesh was standing. Do tell me, she sobbed, and flung an arm over his shoulder. Don't tell me a single word. I know it already. I myself didn't think she was so serious, or I would have tried to stop she. But we have to fight things like that, Ganesh. You must be brave, is what life is. She edged Bihari off the shop stool, sat in it, and cried by herself, wiping her eyes with the corner of her veil. Bihari and Ganesh watched her. I would never leave Suraj Pupa, she said. Never. I ain't educated enough. Suraj appeared at the door. I hear you calling me, ma? No, son, I ain't calling you. But come. Suraj did as he was told, and his mother pressed his head against her knees. You think you ever go on to leave Suraj and he Pupa? She gave a short scream. Never. Yes, son, you could go now. Crying and wiping her eyes and crying again, Suraj Muma said, nobody bothered to educate me, you know. They take me out of school when I was in 3rd standard. I always come first in my class. You know Purushottam, the barrister in Chaguanas? Ganesh shook his head. Me and Purushottam was in the 3rd standard together. I always come first in my class, but still they take me out of school to make me married. I ain't educated, man, but I would never leave you. Ganesh said, don't cry, Marajin. You is a good woman. She cried a bit more, then stopped suddenly. Don't mind, Ganesh. These girls these days just behave as if marrying is something like rounders. They run away. All the time they run away, only to come back. But what you gonna do now, Ganesh? Who go cook for you and keep your house too? Bihari went on with his own thoughts. A wife does keep a man back.
Oh, Mr. Samaru, sorry, you're muted again.
Right? It's all right?
No.
Yeah. And so Ganesh is talking, not writing a book. No, not going to write. No book, nothing, any. He began to stride up and down the short shop. Not even she come back and beg me. Suraj Moma looked incredulous. You're not going to write the book, boy? No. And he kicked something on the floor. Bihari said, you ain't serious, Ganesh. And Ganesh said, I ain't laughing. Suraj Moma said, you mustn't mind what he's saying. He just wants we to beg him a little bit. Look, Ganesh, Bihari said, what you want is a timetable. And look, I ain't begging you. I ain't gonna have you playing the fool and throwing away your abilities. I'm making a timetable for you right now. And if you don't follow it, going to have big trouble between the two of we. Think, writing your own book, boy, with your pictures in front and your name in big, big letters, Suraj Muma said. And getting it on print with that big typewriter machine you tell me about. Ganesh stopped pacing. Suraj Muma said, it's all right now. He go right Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. And you see what the literature does? How the literature agitates even the elders like Professor Samaru when he gets into the reading of it. He becomes very, very involved. Thank you very much again, Professor Samaru. And I want to invite once again David Sami to do a short reading from Guerrillas. Guerrillas is one of Naipaul's most violent novels. It is set at a time of the Black Power uprising in 1970. The characters in the episode are Jane, liberal white woman, Peter Rush, a white South African liberal who is in exile from South Africa, and the French Creole Trinidadian Harry de Tunja. Harry's world is shaken by the unbelieving Harry's desertion to go and live with a Black civil servant. So, David?
Jane had been to the beach house about half a dozen times, and she knew the Sunday routine. But today, something was missing. The house was missing a presence. It was missing Marie-Therese, Harry's wife. She had, without warning, left him. One afternoon, she had driven their two children to the airport, who were going back to their school in Canada after the holidays, and she hadn't returned home. Marie-Therese had left, but she hadn't gone far. The civil servant whose mistress she had become lived on the ridge as well. She still acknowledged certain duties towards Harry and visited their house 2 or 3 times a week to see that everything worked. There was even some question that she might be coming to the beach house this Sunday. But now, near midday, it was clear that she was spending the day somewhere else. Harry said, You met her on Friday, Jane. Did she tell you she was coming? She didn't say. Harry rocked in his hammock that was slung from the 2 front pillars of the porch. To Jane, her chair at the back of the porch, he seemed to be swinging between the sea and the sky in his fringed Bermuda shorts and white canvas shoes and red striped jersey. His arms were folded tight across his chest. There were dark rings below his sunken, distressed eyes. Harry said, I asked Meredith and Pamela, but it looks as if something is keeping them back too. That's the trouble. When you lose your wife, it's like a wedding in reverse. Some people are on the boys' side, some people are on the girls' side. It's the standard crisis. She will be back. When we are 41, we all think it would be nice to make a fresh start. It's the kind of thing we laugh at when we are 42. Huh, Peter? Yes, Peter, that's what you told me. And that's a little philosophical bit that I've been holding on to, but I don't know, man. This damn thing's going on too long now. I begin to feel that they're playing for keeps. I don't know what came over Marie-Therese. She's completely a different person. I don't know how anyone can change so much. I told her the other day, Marie-Therese, that guy is just having a good time in bed with you. And you know what she said? Huh? Peter, Jane, you know what she said? Well, what do you think I'm having? Can you believe that? Huh? Jane said, yes, I could believe it. Harry said, then you see more than me. I never knew Marie-Therese talk like that. She is even moving differently. She came to the house and she comes in these days and she starts moving around like a kind of a ghost. quiet but fast. When I tell you, boy, those hands of hers are just going like that. Wish, wish, bam, bam, and that's that. She straightened everything and she's ready to go. It's as though she's under some kind of a spell. What's this guy's technique? That's what I asked her Friday gone. Marie-Therese, what's this guy's technique? Has he read some book or something? Tell me, I can read too. He laughed, swinging in his hammock, his arms tightly crossed, as though he were cold. Again, there came the sound of bells from the beach. It rose and fell with the wind, and then disappeared. Harry said, I hate music. Jane said, I don't mind those people down there on the beach. I was fascinated. I thought I could watch that man and woman all day. Yeah, and they could keep at it all day, Harry said. Those people would dance their way to hell, man. Do you know, Jane, I have never tapped my feet to music. Never. If I had my way, I would ban music and dancing. Make it a crime. 6 months for every record you play and hard labor for reggae. Jane, I'm serious. This is a country that has been destroyed by music. You just have to think of what is going on right now on that beach and think how lovely and quiet it would be, huh? None of that reggae the whole blasted day. Jane, sitting forward, said quickly, I know what Marie-Therese is doing now. She's tapping her feet to music. Harry said, what's the guy's technique? He sat up in his hammock, his legs slender, brown, and sharp-shinned below the fringed Bermuda shorts hung free. His white canvas shoes looked very big. Ever since that girl cut loose the language, Jane, the language that girl uses to me, I'm ashamed to tell you. What do you suppose they're doing now? Huh? At it. Eh? He lay back in a hammock and looked at the ceiling of the porch. At it all the time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Sounds like somebody had a real bad tabanka there, boy.
Hey, not me.
Well, it couldn't be the reader. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're coming very, very close to the end of tonight's program. We just have one presenter again. This presenter is the well-known Michael Sherry. Michael Sherry presents I Don't Meddle in White People Business, an excerpt from Naipaulian's The Night Watchman's Occurrence. Michael Sherry is an actor, director, acting coach, voiceover artist, and an assistant professor at UTT's Academy for the Performing Arts. Theatre credits include Dr. Martin Dysart in Peter Schaefer's Equus, Jackson Phillip in Derek Walcott's Pantomime, and the titular hero in Edgar White's I, Marcus Garvey and William Shakespeare's Othello. Film credits include the screen adaptations of V.S. Naipaul's The Mystic Marcia, Carl Phillips' The Final Passage, and more recently, Maya Kozier's feature, She Paradise, Kaz Ove's short, Dubois, and Murray Sodal's feature, Limbo. Let us now sit back and relax and listen to the voice of Michael Sherry as he presents I Don't Meddle in White People Business.
Good night, everyone. Greetings to fellow thespians, fellow theater artists, Roma Spencer, Victor Edwards, and the Irie Theater Company. and David Sami, distinguished professors Kenneth Ramchan and Professor Brinsley Samaru, and distinguished authors Claire Adam and Brian Macgyver, and to NALIS, a team of NALIS as well. So this is an excerpt from the Night Watchman's Occurrence book by V.S. Naipaul. On finding Night Watchman Kavanda fast asleep in the hotel lounge, the manager fires him and gives a job to Night Watchman Hilliard. Night Watchman Hilliard, this book is to be known as the Night Watchman's Occurrence book. In it, I shall expect to find a detailed account of everything that happens in the hotel at night. Be warned by the example of ex-Night Watchman Kavanda, W.A.G. Inskip, manager. Mr. Manager, remarks noted. You have no worry where I am concerned, sir. Charles Ethelbert Hilliard, Night Watchman. November 23rd, 11 p.m., Night Watchman Hilliard take over duty at Sea Hotel with 1 torchlight, 2 fridge keys and room keys, 1, 3, 6, 10, and 13. Also, 25 cartoons Carib, 7 cartoons Heineken, and 2 cartoons American cigarettes. Bare cartoons intact, bar intact, all corrected, no report. Charles Ethelbert Hilliard. 7 a.m., Night Watchman Hilliard, hand over duty to Mr. Vinales at Sea Hotel with 1 torchlight, 2 fridge keys and room keys, 1, 3, 6, 10, and 13. 32 cartoons there, bar intact, all corrected, no report. Charles Ethelbert Hilliard. Night Watchman Hilliard. Mr. Wills complained bitterly to me this morning that last night he was denied entry to the bar by you. All hotel guests are to be allowed entry to the bar at whatever time they choose. It is your duty simply to note what they take. This is one reason why the hotel provides a certain number of bare cartons. Please note the spelling of this word, W-A-G Inskip. Mr. Manager, remarks noted. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to take some education, sir. Charles Ethelbert Hilliard. November 24th, 11 p.m., Night Watchman Hilliard take over duty with 1 torch, 1 bar key, 2 fridge keys, 32 cartons bare, all intact. 12 midnight, bar closed and barman left, leaving Mr. Wills and others in the bar, and they leave at 1 a.m. Mr. Wills drinks 16 carb, Mr. Wilson 8, Mr. Percy 8. At 2 a.m., Mr. Wills come back in the bar and take 4 carb and some bread. He cut his hand trying to cut the bread, so please don't worry about the stains on the carpet, sir. At 6 a.m., Mr. Wills come back for some soda water. He didn't have any, so he take a ginger beer instead. Sir, you see, it's my intention to do this job good, sir. I can't see how Night Watchman Kavanda could fall asleep on this job, sir. Charles Ethelbert Hilliard. You always seem sure of the time, and guests appear to be in the habit of entering the bar precisely on the hour. You will kindly note the exact time. W.A.G. Inskip. Noted. Charles Ethelbert Hilliard. November 25th, midnight, bar close, and 12:23 a.m., barman left, leaving Mr. Wills and others in bar. Mr. Owens take 5 bottles carb. Mr. Wilson 6. Mr. Wilson 6 bottles Heineken. Mr. Wills 18 carb. And they left at 2:52 a.m. Nothing unusual. Mr. Wills was helpless. I don't see how anybody could drink so much. 18 one man alone. Is work enough to turn anybody Seventh-day Adventist. Charles E. Hilliard. More than 2 pounds of veal were removed from the fridge last night, and a cake that was left in the press was cut. It is your duty, Night Watchman Hilliard, to keep an eye on these things. W.A.G. Inskip. Mr. Manager, I don't know why people are so anxious to blame servants, sir. About the cake. The press lock at night, and I don't have the key, sir. Everything's safe where I am concerned, sir. Charles Hilliard. November 27th, 1 a.m., bar close. Mr. Wills and our American 19 carb, 2:30 a.m. Our police come and ask for Mr. Wills. He said the American report that he was robbed of $200.00, and he was last drinking at sea with Mr. Wills, Mr. Jimenez, and others. Mr. Wills and the police asked to open the bar to search it. I informed them that I am not authorized to open the bar just like that. The police must come with the manager. Then the Americans say it was only a joke, he was joking, and they tried to get the police to laugh. But the police looking the way I feeling, see Hilliard. Night Watchman Hilliard, will you kindly tell me who Mr. Jimenez is and what rooms he occupied or occupies? The names of all the hotel guests are on the slate next to the light switches. If you find Mr. Jimenez's name on this slate or could give me some information about him, I'd be most warmly obliged to you. The lady in room 12 is Mrs. Roscoe. It is your duty to see the guests are not pestered by unauthorized callers. I would be glad if in future you could direct such callers straight to me. W.A.G. Inskip, manager. Sir, I don't know what sort of work I take up. I always believe that night watchman work is a quiet work, and I don't like meddling in white people business. The gentleman called Mr. Jimenez occupy room 12 also. I didn't think it was necessary to mention because it was none of my business, sir. CEH. Night Watchman Hilliard, not necessary to mention. You are not to decide what is necessary to mention in this Night Watchman's occurrence book. Since when have you become sole owner of the hotel as to determine what is necessary to mention? November 28th, midnight, bar closed and barman left at 2:20 a.m., leaving Mr. Wills and others, and they all left at 1:25 a.m. Mr. Wills, 8 carb, Mr. Wilson, 12, Mr. Percy, 8, and the man they called Paul, 12. Mrs. Roscoe joined the gentleman at 12:33 a.m. 4 gins, everybody calling her Minnie from Trinidad. And then they start singing that song and some others. Nothing unusual. CEH. You will please sign your full name at the bottom of your report. You are in the habit of writing nothing unusual. Please take note and think before making such a statement. I want to know what is meant by nothing unusual. I gather, not from you, needless to say, that the police have fallen into the habit of visiting the hotel at night. I would be most grateful to you if you could find the time to note the times of these visits. W.A.G. Inskip. So, nothing unusual means everything usual. I don't know, nothing I write in you liking. I don't know what sort of work this night watchman work getting to be. Since when people have to start getting Cambridge education to get a night watchman job? I'm not educated. And because of this, everybody think they could insult me. Charles Ethelbert Hilliard. November 29th, midnight, bar closed, and 12:15, barman left, leaving Mr. Wills and Mr. Roscoe and others in the bar. Mr. Wills and Mrs. Roscoe left at 12:30 a.m., leaving Mr. Wilson and the man they called Paul, and they all left at 1 a.m. 20 minutes to 2, Mr. Wills and party returned and left again at 5 to 3. At 3:45, Mr. Wills returned and take bread and milk and olives and cherries. He asking for nutmeg too. I say we has none. He drink 2 carib and left 10 minutes later. He also collect Mrs. Roscoe bag. I don't know, sir. I don't like this sort of work. You better hire a night barman. At 5:30, Mrs. Roscoe and the man they call Paul come back to the bar. They was having a quarrel. Mr. Paul saying, you make me sick. Mrs. Roscoe saying, I feeling sick. And then she vomit all over the floor, shouting, I didn't want that damn milk. I didn't want that damn milk. The police come at 2, 3:48, and 5:52. They sit down in the bar a long time. I don't know, sir. I think it'd be better for me to go back to some other sort of job. At 3, I hear somebody shout, thief! And I see a man running out of the back, and Mr. London, room 9, saying he missed 80 cents and a pack of cigarettes, which was on his dressing table. I don't know when people in this place do sleep. Charles Ethelbert Hilliard. Night watchman Hilliard. Lot more than 80 cents was stolen. Several rooms were in fact emptied during the night, including my own. You are employed to prevent such things occurring. Your interests in the morals of our guests seems to be distracting your attention from your duties. Save your preaching for your roadside prayer meetings. Mr. Pick, room 7, reports that in spite of the most pressing and repeated requests, you did not awaken him at 5. He has missed his plane to British Guyana as a result. No newspapers were delivered to the rooms this morning. The messenger's bicycle, which I must remind you is the property of the hotel, has been damaged. What do you do at night? What do you do? W.A.G. Inskip. Please don't ask me, sir. Related to the damaged bicycle, I left the bicycle the same place where I meet it. Nothing take place so as to damage it. I always take care of all property, sir. I don't know how you could think I have time to go out for bicycle rides. About the papers, sir, the police and them read it and leave them in such a state that I didn't think it would be nice to give them to the guests. I wake up Mr. Pick, room 7, at 4:50 a.m., 5 a.m., 5:15 a.m., and 5:30 a.m. He told me to F off. He would not get up. And one time, he pelted a box of matches at me. Matches scatter all over the place. I always do everything to the best of my ability, sir. But God is my witness. I never find a night watchman work like this. So much writing, I don't have time to do anything else. I don't have 4 hands and 6 eyes. And I want this extra assistance with Mr. Wilson Party, sir. I am a poor man, and you could abuse me, but you mustn't abuse my religion, sir. Because the good Lord sees all and will have his revenge, sir. I don't know what sort of work and trouble I land myself in. All I want is a little quiet night walk. And all I gain is abuse. Charles E. Hilliard. November 30th, 12:25 a.m. Bar closed and barman left 1 a.m., leaving Mr. Wills and party in bar. Mr. Wills take 12 carib, Mr. Wilson 6, Mr. Percy 14, Mrs. Roscoe 5 gins. At 1:30 a.m., Mrs. Roscoe left. There were a little singing and mild guitar playing in room 12. Nothing unusual. The police come at 1:35 and sit down in the bar for a time, not drinking, not talking, not doing anything except watching. At 1:45, the man they call Paul come in with Mr. McPherson of SS Naparoni. He was falling down and laughing whenever anything break. And the man they call Paul say, "Fireworks about to begin. Tell Minnie, Malcolm coming. The ship just dock." Mr. Wills and Patty scatter, leaving 1 or 2 bottles half empty. And then the man they call Paul tell me to go up to room 12 and tell Minnie Roscoe that Malcolm coming. I don't see how people could behave so. The thing enough to make anybody turn priest. I noticed the padlock on the bar door break off. It hanging on only by a little piece of wood. And when I went up to room 12 and tell Mrs. Roscoe that Malcolm coming, the ship just dock. The woman gets sober straight away. Like she don't want to hear no guitar music and she asking me where to hide, where to go. I don't know. I feel the day of reckoning is at hand, but she not listening to what I saying. She busy straightening up the room 1 minute, packing the next. And then she run out into the corridor, and before I could stop, she run straight down the back stairs to the annex. And then 2:05, still in the corridor, I see a big man running up to me, and he's sober as a judge, and he mad as a drunkard, and he asking me where she is, where she is. I ask whether he is an authorized caller. He said, "Don't give me another crap now. Where she is, where she is." So, remembering about the last time, and Mr. Jimenez, I direct him to the manager office in the annex. The red man hear a little scuffling inside Mr. Inskip room, and I make out Mr. Inskip's sleepy voice and Mrs. Roscoe voice, and the red man run inside, and all I hear for the next 5 minutes is bam, bam, bro, bro, bo. And this woman screaming. I don't know. I don't know what sort of work this night watchman getting to be. I want something quiet, like the police. Mr. Hilliard, in view of the unfortunate illness of Mr. Inskip, I am temporarily in charge of the hotel. I trust you will continue to make your nightly reports, but I would be glad if you could keep your entries as brief as possible. Robert Magnus, Acting Manager. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. And certainly, I think it's a challenging piece, a piece that I'm certain that you could use at UTT in your performing arts program, as challenging as
UTT Broadway, on to you, boy. UTT.
as challenging as more
World
capital.
tour, world tour, boy.
All right.
Theater's not just Irie, it's the world.
All right, Michael. All right.
The West End.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're just about at the end. I did promise the professor that I'd wrap this up in under 2 hours, and we are still under 2 hours. So I will indulge the professor Ramchan for about 3 minutes to make a few comments before I invite Ms. Pilgrim to do the closing remarks. No, it's not closing remarks I'm making, I can't.
No, and I wish I knew how to not unmute. Well, I really am very pleased with the performances. We had to survive a rough thing at the start, and Michael, I think you did a great job with the Night Watchman Occurrence book, and so did David. every single person. Brianne, wonderful. I'm saving my best cherry for last. And Claire, that was great. I like the reading. I like your comments. I like your comments too, Brianne. And I think all the items in the program began to pull together as we went along. So, in spite of the bad start, I think the blessing and the singing of Pandit Atma and his family really brought us back on track. And Roma, girl, you have really, if it was necessary, you have truly creolized Vidya Naipaul. This is a Trinidad Indian writing, and you represented him wonderfully.
Thank you.
That's it, Ken?
That's it.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Ken. And now I would like to invite Mariella Pilgrim, member of the organization of Friends of Mr. Biswas, to do the closing remarks. So, Mariella.
Thank you very much, Victor. So once again, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And I have this great pleasure. And I have to start off by just saying, wow, I am at a loss for words. We have come to the end of a remarkable and awesome event. The readers and performers have brought Naipaulian comedy to life. We want to express our appreciation to NALIS, the National Library and Information System Authority, Acting Director Ms. Paula Green and her staff, who have been really helpful and instrumental in ensuring that this event was made available through their YouTube channel. And I am sure that this partnership will continue to grow from strength to strength. Thanks to Jason and Debbie Goodman, and I don't want to continue calling names, but they have been at our side. To all those incredibly amazing speakers, presenters, who have brought out a side of Naipaul that some did not believe existed. We were given clear, extraordinary evidence that Naipaul wrote comedy. You have inspired me to take a second look at Naipaul's work, and I'm sure other viewers as well, based on the comments in the chat. I have seen people saying, I am now intrigued by this book, now moved to get a hold of Suffrage of Elvira, inspired to crack open this book, House of Mr. Biswas. So these presentations have inspired so many of our listeners. But I want to go back to the start. Pandit Atma and his family group for that traditional musical rendition of birthday greetings to Sir Vidya Naipaul. Quite an appropriate start to a birthday celebration. Irie Theatre production presentation of You Must Be Nuts has just whet our appetites as we look forward to the day when we can get back to attending live presentations by this group. We look forward to more joint events with them. Our two authors who participated in the event, Naipaul and me, Claire Adam and Brianne Macgyver. Thanks for your insight, your thoughts on Naipaul and the impact he had on your work, the snapshot of your work. I'm sure that those very vivid readings would encourage all of us to try to get our hands on your publications. We look forward to hearing more from you in the future. We can say that our literature is in safe hands. David, Sami, I'm really, you know, you are one, all of the presenters have me at a loss. All the props included, and I just want to read some of the comments, you know, in the chat. People talking that you even have the jet black eyebrows and the mustache, or, you know, your props on the sidelines. Really, really entertaining and educational, which is most important. And as well as Roma Spencer. Roma, you know, that conversation between Chitta Ramjan and Ram Logan. One of the viewers commented that they grew up in that era in Curep, and it is a very familiar scene with this language. So you have brought back memories to persons from their childhood. Professor Samaru, writing for spite. There's some persons who commented saying that they didn't know this side of you. And yes, they are ready to dig back into Mystic Monsieur, open that book again. And of course, Michael Cherry. I am ready to place my order for Night Watchman's Occurrence because, I haven't read the book through and through and I need to get my hands on it. So you also, that really inspiring performance. I'm sure out of the viewers, Irie Production may find some persons asking, well, can I join the group? I'm so excited about it. Our man of business, Victor Edwards, who ensured that the program flowed smoothly, even though we had those glitches at the beginning, but after that, everything flowed smoothly with the help of our NALIS tech support. And finally, the members of Friends of Mr. Biswas, under the chairmanship of Professor Kenneth Ramchan, who continue to work at highlighting the works of Sir Vidya Naipaul and NALIS. We would both like to thank you for joining us this evening. And please look out for upcoming events. And from me, have a good evening and be safe. So I'm turning back over to Victor. Thank you very much.
Well,
Victor, give me 1 minute. Victor, give me 1 minute to thank you very much for taking over at the last minute and making a wonderful continuous show of this. Thank you. I'm glad to see that more and more members of the Committee of Friends of Mr. Biswas are becoming directly involved in the work that we do. So thank you.
Yeah, well, people beginning to show, when people begin to show up the colors, what's happening, there's get more work to do. That is what will happen. But remember too that people have the other work to do as well. All right. But of course, I'm here to give whatever assistance I can to Friends of Mr. Biswas in whatever way that I can. And with the support of Irie Theatre, of course. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been just about 2 hours. I did promise the professor that this program will be under 2 hours, and I think we just about made it. I want to thank all of you for your contributions. I was enthused throughout, and I hope that we, the thespians and the artistic community, will very soon be able to share our wares with the general public as we so deserve to do. So good night and God bless.
Good night and thank you.
Bye, Roma.
Bye. Nice to see you, Victor.
Bye, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good evening.
Bye, bye, bye.
Bye,
Bye, Graham.
David.
Bye.
All those in Toronto and foreign countries.
Toronto.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, Debbie.
Excellent job, everyone.
It was
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mariella.
David, I always remember
No
you
problem.
For the
Thank
wrap-up.
you as well.
when we were in Connecticut.